we, we align with Awkwardly Awesome Podcasts in 3, 2, 1. Starting right now. Today I'm honored to have Brent Wilcox as my guest. Let me tell you a little about Brent. By trade, Brent is a healthcare construction manager who helps create environments where patients can achieve their best health. He is passionate about work and helping a client's vision come to life. His favorite part about working in the construction industry is the relationship, friendships, and partnerships he gets to be a part of. It truly takes a team to carry out a project. In line with his company's vision, he can honestly say he does what he loves in the service of people who love what he does. And I cut and pasted this. Okay, here's the second part. But his most important role is that of father and husband. He and his amazing wife have 3 wonderful and energetic children who keep them on their toes and make every day new and exciting. They live in the Pacific Northwest and love playing outside, swimming, boating, and being close to extended family. So now let's welcome Brent once I get all these windows done. Hey, Brent, welcome to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast.
Hey, Jason, thanks for having me.
It's an honor to have you. Reading that bio, it seems kind of ironic to think of the reason I originally was inspired to have you on. Could you tell a little bit about that? We were in a Zoom meeting with a very optimistic group. And could you talk a little about what you said at the end of that Zoom meeting?
Yeah, certainly. So many of us from the extreme leadership experience got together on a Zoom meeting, and we were talking about just connecting. And in these uncertain times, and we're all over the world. We had people in Ireland, all across the United States, and we took the time to just connect and talk and say, how are we actually doing? And at the end of the call, I shared a thought that has just kind of been hanging around with me for a long time, that a lot of people are struggling, and it's a tough year. And I think a lot of times we put ourselves in a box and we make this comparison that, oh, my struggles aren't as big as somebody else's that I know, so I should just be positive and move on. And we don't actually deal with those feelings. And so I made a comment at the end of the Zoom meeting that we need to take responsibility to be okay if we're struggling, and also to create spaces where others can feel safe to share if they're struggling. Even if their struggles might not be as much as somebody else in the meeting, it's still important that we process those feelings and that we take time to recognize those. And a lot of times I'm in these Zoom meetings, and I have to admit, I try to be a pretty positive and optimistic guy. And sometimes we share and we get this vibe going that everyone's positive, and, oh, this pandemic has done nothing but great things for me and my family. And all of a sudden the direction turns to how positive things are. And then if you're the one person in that meeting that's feeling like it's not positive, you're having a tough day, we shrink and we go back and we say, this isn't a good place for me to share. I'm just going to let everybody be positive and keep going. I don't have anything to contribute here, and I'm the odd man out or the odd woman out. So we put ourselves in that box and we don't share, and we feel totally isolated, and we feel depressed, and we feel alone. But that's really not the case. Most of the time, even the people that have shared positive things that are happening, they still have other challenges that they're facing as a result of what we're going through. So it's important to just give the space and the chance for those people to be heard and feel understood and valued, and know that they're loved and they're not alone. And so that's, ultimately what kind of led Jason and I down this road and connected us again. And here we are today.
Wow, so much wisdom in what you just said. First of all, it occurred to me that if an alien was listening to some Zoom meetings, they would figure that there's nothing going on in 2020 that is the absolute best year of civilization, and they might be disoriented to hear the reality.
Yeah, that's a really good observation. I hadn't even thought of it that way, but you're right. Some of the meetings, like I'm sure all of us listening can think of a meeting in the last week where that's what they would think, that nothing is out of the ordinary, business as usual, life is great.
And then you also brought up such an important point that we humans so often struggle compare. Like we go either way. Oh, my struggles aren't that bad, so I better just buck up and be happy. Or else we go, that's no fair. He or she has it so much better. And your point is that a human struggling is a human struggling, and a struggle in someone's life is a struggle in someone's life. And so my next question is, how do we respect another human struggle and listen to it?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Without trying to fix it or minimize it, and also without going down into the dumps with them. It's a big question.
No, it's a great question, and it hits on so many levels of things that I'm going through this year, and I think a lot of us are. I think most of the time, in my experience, and I'm going to share personally, it's just the opportunity to be heard. I think most of the time we just want someone to listen. It doesn't necessarily mean we need them to fix it. My wife and I have had this conversation so many times in our marriage, because that's me. I'm a fixer. I'm a project manager in the construction industry. I'm paid to solve problems. No projects are alike, and they start and we encounter a problem and it's like, okay, solve it right now, get us back on track. So that innate tendency that I have to fix things sometimes is, my downfall in my personal life, because not everyone wants to just be fixed. A lot of people just want to be heard and understood and feel like they were genuinely cared for. And I've seen that more in my personal life this year than ever, that even for me personally, sometimes I don't need someone to fix it. I just want someone to listen. And when someone takes the time, whether it's Zoom or in person or on a phone call, whatever it is, when someone takes the time to just ask the question and create that opportunity, I think a lot of times that's what is the difference maker. So, instead of just saying, hey, Jason, how's it going today? And we give our standard answer, right? Oh, good, and then we jump right into the next thing. What are we here to talk about? Well, instead taking the time to say, man, it's been a crazy year. Like, how are you doing right now, Jason? What's going on in your life? And, asking more specific, thoughtful questions, and then just shutting up and listening, I think is a big difference maker, to just, like I said, create that safe space where people feel like this is a friend, this is someone I can talk to, and this is someone that cares to listen. So that's, I guess, it's a big question, like you said, but that's, I think, my number one answer would just be giving people the space to be heard and then taking the time to listen and acknowledge what they might be going through. And I think a lot of times what I find is when I share something like that at the beginning of the meeting, usually somebody else in the end either reaches out after or in the meeting says, I'm going through the same thing Brent is, that's exactly what I'm facing right now. And it's tough. And so one person acknowledging that creates a safe space for everyone. And it really can transform a meeting. It can transform our lives.
Hmm. Can transform a meeting. It can transform our lives. I know for me, I'm often afraid if I ask a question like that. Like 2020 is really challenging. How is it going for you? I'm afraid a person will give me a 2-hour long answer and they'll be crying and I'll be crying. So how as a, like, you're a busy individual, you're directing the building of hospitals. How in your busy schedule are you able to listen to people but yet move forward with your day?
Yeah, I mean, going back to what you said in my bio statement, I really, my favorite part about what I do is the relationships. And as busy and crazy and fast paced as construction is, and you could apply that to almost anything people do, not just construction. It's taking the time to find those moments during your day where you can have those conversations. So I might be talking to an architect about a problem on a job site, but I can start the call and take 2 minutes to just chat with a friend before we jump into business. So it's taking advantage of the little moments and you don't necessarily have to go out of your way to have those conversations. They happen for me naturally every single day. My company where I work, we're separated into teams. We have practice groups, and my practice group leader, we meet monthly as a group, and there's about 25 of us. And several months ago, at the beginning of this pandemic, I got invited through a friend from Extreme Leadership Experience to join one of their company calls. It's a 30-minute weekly touch base that they did. And I had never met anyone else on the call except the COO who had invited me. And I got to just be a fly on the wall and listen. And he started out with a moment of gratitude. And so he called out on the screen in the order that they appeared, Jason, what are you thankful for today? And they had like 5 seconds to say, today I'm thankful for coffee. That's getting me through my day. And then the next person could say, I'm thankful for my sister. She really got me out of a jam when my car died last night. And they popped off and went through the group like that. Well, I kind of adopted that, and we take turns rotating who leads our group meetings. And several months ago when I was leading, I did a moment of gratitude and I gave everybody about 30 seconds to share. And that's it's been really fun to watch how that's morphed, because as we rotate through hosts of the meeting, everybody's brought their own spin to it. So not every month is it a moment of gratitude. Sometimes it's something funny that happened to us this week. It can be something, a challenge, our biggest challenge right now. And that's the meeting I want to talk about. When I want to say 2 months ago, my boss was leading it. So he was hosting and chairing the meeting, and he said, today I want to start a little differently. I want to hear what your biggest challenge is. What do we're going through this pandemic. It's crazy. Everything is different. Throw what we knew out the window. What are you going through right now? What's your biggest challenge? And we all had about 30 to 60 seconds to share what our biggest challenge was, rather than a moment of gratitude. And I was the first one called on, and I shared that this has been a very tough and trying year for me, being a positive, optimistic person that's always busy, go, visiting the job sites. All of a sudden, working from home day after day, my projects being put on hold, my family here in the same house 24/7, my wife trying to manage the children with their remote schooling and remote learning. We've been thrown in this blender together, and everything we used to do is different now. And I shared with the group that it's stretched my family and it's stretched me in ways I never thought I would have to deal with. And I just opened up and was vulnerable for a moment. And it was so amazing because the rest of the meeting, everyone went through and shared their biggest challenge. And there were a lot of themes. And in the end, that took about 25 minutes. So it was almost half of our meeting, but we were still able to get through the rest of the agenda just fine. And everyone walked away, either saying it out loud or writing in the text box how thankful they were that we had that opportunity to talk, because it was just good to hear from our friends and our coworkers and hear that we're all struggling and we're all, no matter how positive things are, there's still things that we're facing. So that's a really long answer to your question. I'm sorry. I do that sometimes. I'm definitely a talker. But I would say it's taking advantage of the opportunities in your day to connect with people in just short, meaningful ways, and then giving people moments when we do meet together, when the opportunity allows to open up and talk freely in a place where people can be vulnerable.
I love your mean story. Do I have an echo?
Nope, you're good on my end.
Good. I love your meeting story. You told me that before, like, hearing people just doesn't have to take all day. You got through 25 people in like 20 minutes. Your boss did. That's amazing. And everyone was grateful. Sometimes it just feels so good to say what's on our mind and not just have it stuffed down inside of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of life on the home front, you told this really interesting story of your habit was to work in your home office and then to come out and try and help your wife a little bit while you got lunch. And talk a little about that, because it sounds like just such a great idea.
Yeah. So I was sharing with Jason this experience here at home. Like I said just a minute ago, we're in this crazy new world where we're home, many of us working from home all the time. And not only that, so I'm here and I was usually gone 12 to 14 hours a day for work, between commute and work. Then we've got the kids that would normally be in school. They're here. So all of a sudden,
tell everyone what the kids' ages are.
Yeah, so I've got a son who's just about to turn 9, a daughter who's 6, and a daughter who's 3. So 3rd grade, 1st grade, and preschool.
Wow.
And then we've got the 2 dogs, of course. So, we're the standard family that we're all at home together, navigating this new world where we're here 24/7 almost,
and trying to very peachy clean all the time, right?
Yeah, everything's perfect all the time, no issues at all. Yeah, we're here, and inevitably for anyone, the most perfect couple is going to experience challenges in that environment. When you flip your world upside down and all of a sudden you're all together all the time, things are going to happen. And if you're not talking, that's my big lesson learned from this was the need to communicate and be okay sharing what we're feeling with those closest to us. A lot of times we just bottle things up and we move on. And in the end, we're hurting ourselves by doing that. And we need to make sure we're checking in often and asking, is this okay? Are we on the same page? And without those check-ins, little tiny things can fester and become a problem. And so that's why I say, for me, it was a lessons learned and a wake-up call that we can't just take for granted the way things used to be and the normal that we had on a daily basis. this is all new. And so we have to take the time to talk and connect and make sure we're meeting each other's needs of those that are closest to us. So the story is I was, for months working from home, and I'd get up at random, no rhyme or reason, no schedule around my meetings and stuff. And I'd go out of my home office into the living room. The dining room and kitchen are all one big room. And I'd do what I needed to do. I could get a water refill. I'd get my lunch. I'd get a snack. I'd stretch my legs, whatever it was. Well, I was coming out and I was, just, hey, I'm out here. I might as well help out a little bit. So I'd start doing the dishes. I'm a fixer, right? I said that. I'd start fixing. I'd go through and I'd start grabbing things and cleaning up in an effort to help. Only good intentions, right? Well, what I didn't stop to think and realize is, how might this be perceived by the person most important to me, my wife and my kids? And, I found out that sometimes I was cleaning up things that they were still doing. Maybe that my son was in the middle of a project, had to run upstairs for a Zoom meeting for class or a Teams meeting, and he'd come back downstairs and say, where's all my stuff? I had my glue out, my crayons, everything was ready to go. And I might have even tossed some of the things he was working on, or, they're in the middle of lunch and I think they're done. All of a sudden I'm cleaning up. So imagine you're at work.
Did you literally toss some of the things your son was working on?
I'm pretty sure I did.
Wow. That'd be awkward.
Yeah,
but
you don't know.
Helping out. You're just helping out.
Yeah, it might look like scraps to me, but those might be little tiny cuts that he's made for a project or some, thing that he's working on. And it's the same with my wife. I was going around and, in an effort to help, pick things up and just tidy up and do what I can. Well, after a while, you're in this new environment and she's stressed to the max, trying to keep these kids. Okay, you've got a meeting at 12:45 and you need to be on at 1:00. And, we've got to get this done. I've got to get Ellie to preschool. She's moving and grooving all day long. I'm coming in and just throwing a wrench in things and following behind her, just, do almost passive aggressively coming across that she's not good enough, that she's not doing enough, that I need to clean up behind her. And so, while to me at first, I was like, what, how can this be? How can I, I'm just trying to help. I didn't think about if I was at work and somebody was following behind me every 15 minutes at random or every hour, randomly popping out and just cleaning up before I even had a chance. How might I think about that? What would I think about that person who's just randomly coming into my space and taking over without even asking? That's going to come across as, hey, back off. I've got this. You don't need to clean up after me. I'm good. And so this really small, insignificant, I'm just going to help out, kind of turned into a, hey, you're cramping my style. You're getting in my space, and this is just becoming a problem. And so
how did you two finally have the check-in conversation?
My wife was vulnerable and came to me and said, can we talk? And she shared with me. And I'll be honest, when she first shared, I don't think I took it very well. I got a little defensive. I'm going, how can you say that? I'm only trying to help. I'm trying to be a good husband and a good father. But then when I took the time to really think it through and internalize what she had said and relate it back, thinking how would I like it if somebody was doing that in my workplace all day long, I really understood. And it became clear, like, wow, even the best efforts or the best intentions, if they're not perceived by the other person, the person on the other end, the right way, can be catastrophic. And in this case, luckily, it wasn't that big of a deal. We were able to talk through this and get back on the same page. And we came up with some rules that worked for us that, when I come out, I don't need to feel responsible to do that. I can be in work mode and allow her the space and the time to be a mom and to be a parent. And then after work, I can flip that switch and go back into dad mode and say, okay, I'm here, I'm present. What can I do to help? And sometimes just asking the question when I come out rather than assuming that my help is needed, it goes a long ways to just show understanding. So it's so hard right now, but it doesn't have to be. Like if we're okay talking and we don't get defensive, but we take things in that light of how can I be better? How can I contribute more? How can I help the people that I care about? All of a sudden we're in a totally different place, and we're in a mind space where we can receive that feedback and not get angry. We can receive that and say, okay, that makes sense. I appreciate you sharing that with me. Something I'll definitely start working on. So it's that, continuous improvement, that we're always looking to be better, and we've got to be able to talk and have those hard conversations that sometimes we might not want to have, to be able to get better.
Sometimes that's like hard conversations we don't want to have to get better. Well, so how, like, how do you communicate with your kids about your office space? Like last year at this time, you were either in your office or at work sites 12 to 14 hours a day. Now you and your beloved children are literally in the same four walls 24/7 often. How do you set like parameters and
those boundaries?
Yeah.
I mean, most of the time, I think we're finding in this changing world we keep talking about that people are okay with imperfection. We don't have to have this beautiful background all the time. If you could see below my camera, it's not necessarily as tidy as it is above, and that's okay. So we're in this world where we have to be okay with the imperfections. And sometimes that means my kids come into a meeting and they need something. I was on my end of year review with my boss yesterday, who's just an extremely great guy. And my daughter came in and said, the volume control's not working. And, it was okay to deal with that. Now, there's also meetings where we need we need a little bit more privacy. And that's where, I have the conversation in the mornings. I'll talk to my wife and say, hey, at 1:00, I've got a meeting that's really important with a client, and I'm going to be on camera the whole time. So I'll close the door. Just know that during that time, I'm going to be busy. If my door's open, my kids know that they can come in, they can check in with me if needed. But I can also close the door. And if they see it closed, they know to either knock quietly or not come in. And usually that conversation at the beginning of the day to remind them of my schedule and, hey, during this time, the door's going to be closed, don't come in, goes a long ways. And then, when I'm on a Zoom meeting and I don't want to have to get up and run to the door, I've got one of these grabbers that I can use to just close the door when I need to. It's something I use just when I need to keep that privacy. But most of the time, just a quick check-in at the beginning of the day. That communication enables us to set those boundaries.
So you're proactive about setting boundaries instead of not saying anything and being in an important meeting with the new healthcare system, and someone comes in and suddenly you're all stressed out because then your space, but if you tell them beforehand, it avoids the shock of them coming in. And
98% of the time we avoid the problems by talking. Every now and then they're going to sneak in and say, hey, I need this. My wife will be helping to make lunch or something, and my 3-year-old will come and just open the door. Dad, I need this. And I'm in the middle of a meeting, and most of the time, even if it's an important client call, they just laugh. Everyone knows that we're dealing with something that we've never dealt with, and we're working from home, and there's going to be changes. So, sometimes I have calls with my daughter, one of my daughters on my lap, and that's just the way it is. And when appropriate, I'll do that. And I found that people are really open, and they're very understanding of the imperfections of our day when we're working from home.
if someone is in a situation where they're not a parent and don't see kids in the day, that it might be a highlight of the day that your daughter is in a meeting and just might be a nice thing for them rather than an imperfection.
Absolutely. Yeah, just at 1 o'clock, one of my daughters and our puppy were in the room with me, and I grabbed the puppy and was just petting her, and my daughter was sitting with me, and all of a sudden the meeting started, and some of my friends and coworkers were on there, and immediately they were all going, "Oh my gosh, look at that puppy!" And we took a couple minutes at the beginning of the day and of the meeting, and everyone was happy. It just brought a smile to everyone's face. So you're right.
And you were awarded best puppy of the Zoom meeting, huh?
That's right.
So you were talking about imperfection, which makes me think of thank you. One of the concept I often talk about is doing your imperfect best, and what it means to me is we have a vision of our best and go for it. But when the imperfections come up, we learn from those imperfections and let them give us strength and propel us forward instead of being stopped by them.
Yeah.
But I'm always curious what doing your imperfect best means to my guests.
Yeah, I love the question, and I love that concept that your kind of slogan is "Do your imperfect best." To me, being your imperfect best or doing your imperfect best, it means being comfortable in your own skin and giving yourself permission to fail. We talked earlier on this podcast that we compare ourselves a lot between social media and all the technology of the day. It's so easy to see this jaded view of this perfect world or this perfect family, and we let that be the standard. That's no longer what we aspire to. It's the baseline minimum. This is a requirement. If we're not perfect, then we're not anything. And that's just totally false. And it's so wrong. And most of the time, those people that appear to be perfect have their own struggles that we have no idea. And so it's giving yourself that permission to fail and know that it's okay. We don't have to hold ourselves to a perfection as a requirement. It can be an aspiration, but when we don't meet it, it doesn't have to be our demise either. So I guess that's what it means to me is being comfortable in your skin and allowing yourself permission to fail. And like you said, it doesn't have to stop us on our journey. It doesn't have to be I failed, might as well just give up. It can be, hey, you know what? I had a bump today. I didn't respond very well when that question was brought up. I could probably do that better next time. And acknowledging that and using that and learning from it, moving forward, one step in front of the other.
Some people hear that, and even I hear what you say sometimes, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, that's great, Brent, in our personal lives and with our families and stuff. But when we go into the professional workplace, it's time to be absolutely perfect. So is the construction of huge hospitals absolutely 100% all the time perfect process?
Absolutely not. Construction is
absolutely not.
It is so complex and there's so many variables. It's absolutely impossible to control them all. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. No matter how hard we try and how much we plan, we will face challenges and hurdles every day on projects. And I always tell the contractors that I'm working with, I say, look, to me, it's not about if you mess up. It's, did you do your best to prevent it? And if you did, Okay, then great. What are we going to do about it? I don't care if you mess up as long as you're willing to take responsibility and come up with a solution to fix it, then let's keep moving forward. So a good example on my last project, I was building a new medical office building out in Shelton, Washington for a public hospital out there. And we hit bumps along the way all the time. But the thing that I kept coming back to is every single time the contractor was extremely quick to respond, let me know, and be transparent about it. And then they usually came and said, and this is what we're proposing to do about it. And even if they didn't have a plan yet, they'd still tell me what was going on and what they were doing. And that gave me the confidence and the peace of mind to say, okay, I'm working with a good group. I don't have to be all stern and rub their nose in the ground and tell them how bad they failed. I knew we were quickly as a team going to come together and persevere. And we did every single time. And it was one of the best projects I've ever been a part of. And we were just so in sync that even when we had those bumps, we had the trust and the confidence in each other to be able to allow time to work through it. And we always did. And it turned out just absolutely fantastic.
So you're saying something fascinating. When people make a mistake, and I know me sometimes in the past, like the temptation is to hide the mistakes under the rug, but you're saying this contractor did the opposite. They were usually proactive about saying, "Hey, Brent, this mistake happened, and we did our best, but it happened, and then we thought about it, and here are some ideas to fix it." So they came at you from a very proactive place.
Yeah, proactive and transparent. And because normally, even our best efforts to hide something, a mistake, they usually come to light eventually,
Especially pretty much in anything, but I'm sure when you're building a major structure that mistakes.
Yeah. And I would much rather know about it and be able to deal with it than have it become a surprise, because then it looks like somebody tried to hide it. And then that's when the problems start. But when we take responsibility and just are okay to say, hey, there was a problem here, it shows that we can be, like I said, I keep saying this word vulnerable. It shows vulnerability and it shows honesty and commitment.
So you're saying the real problem isn't that the mistake was made, but people create more of a problem by covering the mistake up and or denying it or whatever.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, fascinating. What was I going to? So, just a few more questions before we go. But why is it? I've noticed this with projects. I do too. Why is it in projects that difficulties often happen?
In construction specifically?
In construction, but pretty much in any project, it seems like challenges will arise. Do you have any theories on that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that we try to control, and then there's things that are out of our control, that we simply have to deal the cards that we're dealt sometimes. But I also think there's the human element, and humans, we're complex creatures and we're all different and we have our own unique gifts and talents and quirks. And that's part of navigating the professional world is, that human interaction. And that's what brings that change and that complexity to it that makes those problems. And I'm not saying humans create all our own problems, but we do a lot of times. There it could be tied back to that, and we have to take responsibility, and just know that we're all different, and it doesn't always mean. I think we just need to eliminate our standard definition of failure, I guess is what I'm getting at. We 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 don't always fail when we think we fail. Sometimes that leads to the best breakthrough and the best solution. So I think giving people some slack and knowing that we're all different and we're going to approach things differently is giving that space for people to figure that out. That's what it's all about.
Beautiful. So last question. As we enter the holiday season of the year 2020, with everything still going on, what advice do you have to people when they're experiencing a bad day or a bad week?
Yeah, I think that's when we have the chance to open up to people, not wait for someone to come and ask us the question, but find someone that you can talk to about that. Sometimes it's a coworker, sometimes it's a random call that you're on with somebody that takes the time to ask that question. But I would say just look for somebody that you can trust and confide in. And I had that experience 2 weeks ago. I was having a really rough day, and things on one of my projects were just not going well. And I was at my wit's end going, I'm a dedicated person. I'm doing my best. How can this not be enough? And I called a coworker and friend who I talk to maybe once every month or two. They just happened to be on my mind that day. And I called and I said, I really need a friend right now. And I took a walk around the block in my neighborhood and said, I'm dealing with things that I'm not used to, and it's pushing me and it's stressing me out, and I don't know what to do about it. And I need someone to talk to. And I just asked them, can you be that person for me right now? And he said, sure, what's going on? I've got 10 minutes. Let's talk. And I just kind of unloaded. And like I said earlier, sometimes we just want to be heard. I think we all need to do that more. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, because I'm certainly not, but when we're feeling that way, it's for a reason and it's real, and we need to take ownership of it and find someone that we can talk to about it. And usually that helps, just venting it, talking it through, and getting it off our chest.
The two things so brilliant about that conversation. First, your friend didn't say hi, and you didn't just start unloading. You asked him permission, or her permission to talk about what you wanted to talk about. So good. And then he was free to set a boundary too. He's like, hey, I have 10 minutes. I'm here with you for 10 minutes. And so both those things are really great.
Yeah. We just need to be willing to talk more. Sometimes like I said, we put ourselves in this box that we shouldn't talk because other people have it worse than us, or whatever the reason is. They're not going to care to listen. They don't have time. They're too busy. What I've found is we don't talk and connect enough, especially in these days when we're so isolated, and we need that human element. We need that interaction and that communication. And sometimes that's all it takes to kind of bring us back from the edge and get us refocused.
Thanks so much, Brent. Your words could, I hope, help many listeners to know they're not alone, and to reach out when they need to, and to also act towards others with more kindness and vulnerability. Thanks for being on Awkwardly Awesome Podcast.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm still kind of shocked that you would even ask. So the honor was all mine.
I greatly appreciate it. we'll talk again sometime on the podcast.
Yeah, you got it.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Now I'm paying you, and now this is going seamlessly here. And now the outro, and you didn't expect the outro, except I just said the outro was coming, so you know it's here. Okay.